Assalamu alaikum. So I'm William,
I'm Javeria.
and we're in Pakistan. And today, this is not we're not academics. This is not a scientific video, but just a reflection based on our own experiences about traveling to the east when you come from the west, from two different perspectives. Because I'm white and I grew up in a non-Muslim family, and you.
Yeah, I'm Punjabi and Pakistani, but I grew up in the UK.
So even though we have been educating ourselves, we still hold unconscious ideas about what does it mean to travel, and which stem from our Western education, and which could be disrespectful or harmful towards people around us. But obviously, we want to be better people, because nowadays Western culture is about traveling fast and shallow, and we want to.
Yeah, and what we want to do is make sure that our travel is not superficial and that we're travelling slowly and thinking about depth while we're travelling.
Well, there's a trend if you are traveling to Pakistan or to the east from the west. YouTubers who produce titles such as how to get everything in Pakistan for free, how to try clothes and look like a Pakistani, taking pictures with people because they live in poverty and without asking them consent or without crediting them, and also being invited at people's houses and taking advantage of this hospitality and not to compensate them. What have you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, one of the trends I've seen is that it's a very take approach that Western YouTubers and people who come to the country have, and they're so amazed that everything's free, but as you said, they give nothing back in return, and it's a very exploitative way of engaging with the country and travelling, and it feels like there's a lack of critical reflection about why this is happening.
Yeah, and people will never tell you out of respect. It's exploitative, and we found this exploitative as well. Even most recent trends where people would show off embracing Islam on social media just to travel safely in Islamic countries Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. Travel to Saudi Arabia, don't even take the opportunity to do Umrah, where it's super expensive nowadays, and when they're back home, they just go to the old ways, as if they wear Islam as a disguise, and they're just throw it away when they don't need it. But we understand, because we try to be empathetic and in our word and justify the needs, and from a marketing and economic perspective, they might think it's really clever because it attracts you lots of followers, especially in very populated countries. If you find this normal, then I suggest you may want to switch and look at other channels. But if you think it's not normal and you want to travel in a respectful manner, I think this video is for you. So this video is based on an article I've published with Sacred Footsteps, which is an amazing website, not for profit, which publishes about how to travel ethically, and also seeking the spiritual dimension when we travel abroad. And also I think it's important to remind that this video comes from a place of love for the community and for people who undertake such travels, who are curious and want to explore, because our intention is we don't want to see people making headlines for the bad reasons, and we just we want to better ourselves, and we want to collectively be a better community. And so many times there's been press coverage about people who literally go into poor countries, whether it's Asia and Africa, and behave like colonial officers back in the 19th century. And I've given a presentation about this at Zaytuna College in California, and talked about this in my book, Young Muslim Changemakers, because it's a very damaging trend, but at the same time, it's hard for me to accept that even as a oppressed minority in the West, as Muslims, we have come to replicate things that the oppressors did to us and our ancestors centuries ago. How is it possible? And because this is not part of our religion, this is not part of our traditions.
Yeah, I wanted to say we've got great examples of how travel can be done ethically, respectfully, and Sacred Footsteps provides that. And one of the things that I always love is the depth in which they explore travel, and the context and the historical context that people add. And so I think we've also got some wonderful examples in the community, and there are hopeful things available for us to look at.
So the first part is about learning. What do we do to learn about a place before we travel there? Because I believe that you have two ingredients which are key to like the richest travel experiences, which are knowledge and human connections. Now people say, like explore, it's another term for tourists, but when you travel in such a like attitude, it's only like a sensory experience where you just like see things, you smell things, you hear sounds, but then there is no like connection at a deeper level. Before traveling, I ask myself about the history of the place, the culture. I read I start with Wikipedia. Have the people of this place have, for example, experienced like war, displacement, what has emerged from this place in terms of arts, music, food, culture, activism, and so on. This is something you do as well?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think for me, I don't really feel comfortable in a place until I know the context, because I don't know how to navigate it, I don't know how to move in it, and I don't feel it's respectful for me to go there without really understanding the kind of historical, social and political context, like you said. And Wikipedia is always a great place to start, but of course there's like much more in-depth texts that you can use to read about the place you're going to, and I think it's just basic adab.
Try to read academic articles.
Yeah.
If you have library access, just go for academic articles. Also, that's like really in depth. The YouTube videos, like filter the content, because not everything is good. But like we have content produced by local people. The second thing is about still in the theme of knowledge, is about learning the language. So this is something even before Islam I have tried to do, even if it's difficult. And lots of people, for example, have told me that before traveling to India, for example, you don't bother learning Hindi because everyone speaks English. But when you're there, and I've done like field work with charities which are in like very underprivileged areas, they don't speak a word of English, and I want to be able to speak and connect with these people, to know about their work, what they've been doing. There are some exceptions, like it hasn't been always the case when we traveled to Sri Lanka, for example. But then we had like a friend who like speaks like all the different Sri Lankan languages, and which was an intermediary, like a facilitator between like us and the people we were meeting. But otherwise I would feel like very uncomfortable not having a means of connection. And some of our friends, they use like Google Translate, because obviously not everyone has the time to learn a language, even like the basic phrases. How would your family have reacted if I didn't like speak a word of Urdu, for example?
Yeah, so I think on our trip here, like one of the interesting things has been how much people have appreciated the fact that Will's made an effort. And also I think it's added to like the richness of the interactions, right? So he wouldn't have been able to have the conversations he's had, but certainly they would have felt as though he wasn't making an effort if he didn't know the language. And I think it also shows something to the people. It shows that you respect them, and it shows that you're also making an effort to centre what's important to them. And also it was important to me that my family could communicate with you, so alhamdulillah it's been well received, and I think, to be honest, it's the way things should be.
Now, how do you feel on your end about like learning languages? Because it's not easy at all.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, for me, it's not something I really gave much thought until we got married. I have to be honest. And I feel like Will brought a critical lens to traveling in general for me. But it's difficult. Of course, it's difficult, and you have to take. I mean, before you go to a place, like you're reading up on the history, you're learning the language. It's a lot of effort. And of course we understand that, we're living in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy in the UK, we're living in a capitalist and neoliberal system. Our time is squeezed, we're already squeezed as a people, right? So the things that we're doing, we don't have much time for them, and I understand that. We're working, we've got families, this, that and the other, but I think that if we take a step back and we make the time for these things, the richness of the experiences will be much more. And it's something that I'm still on a journey with. Like I try my best. I tend to focus my time more on reading about the context of the place, but as time goes on, I do want to take the time to learn the languages as well.
When I travel to a place, I don't only go and see different locations, different landscapes. I'm trying to secure meetings with people at university. I'm trying to secure meetings with people who work at local charities, activists, artists as well, because when it comes to learning about the history of a place, like, and how people live there, I think these are the best people we can connect with. And even, like, if it's sometimes connecting to some of our friends who are part of the diaspora of these countries when we are in the UK, this is also a great tip for, like, having, like, tips and, like, connections once we are in locations, advice. I find it fun, really, to connect with different people there.
Yeah, absolutely. And often, especially when you connect with charities or activist groups, I often feel like the people on the margins are the ones who tell the truth about a country. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're the people who, they can tell you what's really going on, not what you see in the kind of the mainstream. It is fun, and it's also, like, really insightful. And it adds, like, weight and depth to the travel.
And also we are in a society where we think, travel is also content production. And I'm talking especially from my end because I've been making documentaries abroad. And for example, when I went to Poland, that was 1 week in every location. I've been in situations where if you just out of the plane, you start filming and, like, tick boxes in your schedule, you become overloaded with information, and you end up with your nose in your like in the camera or in your laptop, and you wish you had time to like taken time just to stop, pause, see what's around, talk to people, just breathe basically. But now I feel, because lots of people income also depend on social media, this is like people are almost forced to travel in that way, and it's sad because then you have to choose between, like, traveling for the sake of producing content and potentially surviving, like having like an income and engagement rates, and traveling just for yourself, for like breathing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult balance, but I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, like, am I traveling just for me, my ego and my nerves, or am I centering myself, or am I traveling for a different reason? Am I trying to go there and take rest and film content that is actually informative or useful? Having a few weeks is always better than just having like 4 or 5 days. You just don't get enough time to sit and stop. And I also think you just can't do anything meaningful. And we also have to think quite carefully about, like, this idea of, like, we have like fast fashion and fast food, like also fast travel, right? So, like, is really going to a place for 4 days, is that reasonable? Is that is just fast travel. And also travel has now become like a consumable, but it's also become like another badge of honor thing you can do in the context of consumerism. It's like buying clothes, like buying fancy clothes and wearing them, like going somewhere for 4 days and wearing it as a badge of honor.
Now we've heard like anecdotes such as our friend was telling us about this very famous Muslim photographer who took like portraits of some of the like saints around the Sufi saints around the world, and our friend asked him the question, so you've met these amazing wise people, and did you wish you had more time with them? And the photographer replied that no, I was in the project, I had to get things done. And I felt really disappointed, but it illustrates, I think we need to take this as an illustration of the current mindset people are kind of pushed into. I don't like to think in capitalist terms, but time, like, it's an investment, and for a good reason, because in my experience of creating documentaries, like, one needs to create bonds with a place, whether it is with the nature, the landscape, and of course the people create a bond of trust, so when they appear on camera they are able to tell things more comfortably because they trust you. And even like staying a few days in a place allows you to see things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise, like small details, like noises, sounds that are part of the routine, songs of birds, like certain plants, and very simple things but can make a difference on like what is the emotions and the atmosphere you convey in your shots. Which also means taking time is trying to avoid staying in hotels and or Airbnbs, not only because also it's very expensive, but we, for example, I've been like forcing you kind of into it, but trying to stay with people.
And I think, to be honest, it's worked out. We usually stay with friends, and it's always been comfortable and fine. There's the odd time we do have to stay in hotels, also because like you don't have anyone to stay with, or it's like the only option. I do think there's another part of this though, Will, which is that sometimes, of course, travel is for all of the reasons that we've described, right? But there's also another aspect, which is that sometimes because we live in a society which is governed by these oppressive structures, we do need actually to leave and go somewhere for a couple of weeks to rest. And sometimes those trips don't always have to be like intense engagement. Like I think also we also have to have infrastructure and mechanisms to escape the society and go to places for rest and not do all the intense engagement and learning. So I think we have those places, don't we? Like French Guiana or Pakistan, or we have places where we can just go and rest. Because I don't think also, Will, it's realistic for every single trip to be like this. Because I think, when would you rest, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's that aspect. I don't know what you think of that.
No, I'm happy to take a day doing nothing or two. Yeah. But I guess, it would be very different, like me resting in a hotel with the AC and stuff, and me resting at your uncle's place, for example. That's like a very different experience. That leads us to our third theme, which is how do we use our privilege? Because I believe that whatever is like our background, even like if we're like working class or coming from like marginalized communities, we always still like hold a level of privilege. Especially when we travel to countries that have been through like colonization, war, and me working at university made me think of it, because I'm in a position, and I have been in a position where people would like pay me to go to these places, like stay in hotels and to document like my experiences, which would have been like really harmful. It may influence people who are like able to make very important decisions for people in a particular place, and that's not something I've been comfortable with. In our spiritual tradition, like all these like kind of privileges, they can also be used like for benefiting people we meet and around us. I ask myself, can I do something for local people in French Guiana with Mama Bobby? Like they don't have the means to afford a videographer, so when I was there I just took a couple of days, like it took me around and filming like what they're doing, so they have at least one video on YouTube so they can show, when they're asking for grants, look, this is the work we do. When we stay at people's home, like do we offer like them something? Like for example, you always bring gifts to the family.
Of course, it's basic adab. If you don't do that, I think you got to ask yourself what's going on. And also, not just gifts, but when I'm here, like, or wherever I am, offer help, like help out, like pick up the dishes, wash up, like it's like. But this is just like the things that you should have been brought up with. Like this is the basic adab. Like
do we take things for free, or do we insist on paying like full price? Because lots of people take advantage of this, but it's I think it's our duty to make local business this is work at the same time, because we need to ask ourselves that are the actions and the things we say are reinforcing the dominant narrative, or do we try to be at the level of people? Because the recent scandals, like Western influencers traveling to Pakistan and visiting places under military escort of places which are like forbidden to normal Pakistanis. That's it makes me feel that like the East has become a kind of Disneyland for grown-ups, where they think they have a free ticket to everything, try some ethnic clothes, try some exotic food, and that's it. But
it's just the place that you go to extract from, and you give nothing to. And I think that when people are assessing their own privilege, I think this is what they need to think about, isn't it? It's like, I can roam around these places freely, but can people who actually live here do that? And is this reasonable or not?
And because in our tradition we have the concept of khilafa, stewardship, that when you go to wherever you are, the question to ask ourselves is are we being at the service of the people? How can our presence be, let's say, a mercy to others, and not like as you said, something which extracts things and that without giving back.
And we're literally sitting in a place in Punjab where the British built a railway in this town to extract things that were grown in this area and connected this place to the main line to Lahore to literally extract things. Like, you know, so it's like you have to really carefully think about, like, are you just a continuation of that history? Are you now also just being extractive?
Yeah, the fourth theme is about like what is or who is the focus of your content, and this is like especially for like people who are content creators. So in my experience, and you can tell me as well, like one of the most powerful documentaries or videos have been made by people who are able to make themselves like disappear.
Absolutely.
And just focus on the people
Yeah.
and the places with like minimal commentary. The key question is to ask ourselves whose voice is being heard in the videos we see. And if I'm speaking, am I speaking for others, on behalf of others? Or is the work about my own experience or others, or the good time I'm having? And I think also the key is to make it clear. For example, this video is clearly about our experience. It's not like about Pakistan or
No, it's
or
reflections.
stuff. Yeah.
It's like very clear.
Yeah, but so I think the key is to make it clear that, you know, if you're making a blog about you're having a good time in the Sahara Desert, like make it like crediting people.
Yeah.
Like even if the people who we meet on the road, they may be like strangers, they're not. They have a name. They have like a story. They have like a specific place and role in the society. And if we are able to get something from them, then I think it's completely fair to do it. Why? Because we would do it in the UK, in Europe. Otherwise, they can they can complain, and they've been credited with that, and you can get fined for this kind of things. And we think because we travel, it's Pakistan, like it's Africa, we have we can do that for free. And one disturbing trend, for example, has been with charities who always do this with orphans, taking selfies with poor orphans just to big up their social media game and prove we're doing something. But this is so colonial.
It's so colonial, and it's just deeply cringe, and it's deeply against the adab of our religion. I mean, sometimes I know this is really intense, but sometimes I think about this situation where on the Day of Judgment we'll be in front of Allah, and Allah might play back what content we've made, and then we'll have to be well, I did this because, or we'll be asked why did you do this, or what net benefit was there, or were you just being an idiot? Were you doing it uncritically? Were you actually harming people, or you were taking pictures of women or children without asking them, which is obviously against the adab of our religion? I don't know, I just think there's a lot of things here that are unquestioned, just as I'm going to be asked how many clothes did I buy by Allah, and how much did I spend. I'm sure we'll be asked about these things.
Final point is do we listen to feedback, because this is something which is, I think, the most difficult to do in our personal lives, even in our married life or with friends, is can we take criticism? But again, there is a difference between people who just project their own pain and insecurities, and people who really care about you and who provide constructive criticism, who want to see you improving. In my experience, no matter how good I've been at trying to be fair, I'm sure my work has offended people, and this is inevitable, especially when we are in a continuous journey. But the key is how to make ourselves better, and along the way there will be people who out of a place of justice, even they can be harsh, because sometimes when you offend people, that it causes pain. When you portray something with a bias, it causes pain, it triggers something, especially when you touch at something people who have been through partition and stuff. But there's a difference between on social media, deleting the comments and blocking the people who've made these comments. It took the time to write something very long and thorough, and just dismiss it, and try to just extract what can you take from that, and so you can integrate this in the future.
No, I agree. I think it's always hard to listen to feedback, and to be honest, Will, like, I think, especially when you've created something, it's almost like it's a piece of you, and then when someone criticises it, it can feel quite personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard. And I also think, to a degree, no matter how much we try and purify ourselves, whether it's something we write or produce in terms of content, I think our egos are a little bit attached to it. And I think our egos can be a little fragile sometimes. And it's hard to hear difficult feedback, but I think, I don't know, if you're not willing to do that, then I think you kind of you end up producing like semi-monstrous content, or I don't know, I think it's just like...
That's very interesting what you said, like, yeah, criticism as purification. Yeah, that sounds like all of us, and that sounds like much more enjoyable.
It is enjoyable.
I would say.
Ideally, that's what it should be.
And you know, I've been trying to be empathetic and understand why people like produce this like horrible content, and I understand that, especially when we talk about Muslims in the West, like we're talking about people collectively deprived from financial stability, from visibility, from representation, and now we have social media, and we see people trying to get one atom of visibility, one atom of financial stability at any cost. But we believe there is a way of doing things differently, because we've seen people doing things differently.
But also, sometimes people are... Well, listen, a lot of Muslims are just like squeezed and traumatized by social structures, and sometimes people are literally producing traumatized content, Will, and to be honest, Will, I'm sure we've all been guilty of that, right? Sometimes content can be erratic and odd, or something we write or something we create, and I think, yeah, it's understandable.
So in the piece I wrote for Sacred Footsteps, and on their website in general, like, you can find people doing things differently. Let's say, for example, they've made like a whole article about South Asian photographers in South Asia, in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and Afghanistan as well. I think, you know, local people who document their experiences, and I found this so refreshing. So, and also you've got some Western vloggers trying to be critical of themselves, and we need to highlight them, and you'll find them like in Sacred Footsteps as well. But as a word of conclusion, I think, you know, I like to see, because people are often like get offended when we point out that no, you have privilege, you have power, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. The question is, what do we do with this power? And I believe that, you know, in Islam we are due zakat on our wealth, and it's also like good to have sadaqah. And what if we apply the same concept but to our privileges? Like, I enjoy some visibility, I have a certain amount of followers, what can I do with these followers? Or I enjoy like a position at university, what can I do with the money and the platform I get from the university? So if we are due a zakat on our wealth, on our financial wealth, what if we try to also to give sadaqah on our like cultural, social wealth? Like, how can we distribute knowledge we have? How can you use the network we have so it benefits like other people who do not have access to that? This is what I think a good way of concluding it. Anything you would like to add on this?
Yeah, and whether it's that you're someone who can produce content and you can share that, or use your skills and share that in the place that you are, or while you're traveling, if it's that you can sit down and hold space for someone, because Allah's given some people, everyone different capacity, right? And a person's skill might be that they can sit and hold space and give love or help in different ways, and whatever that is, I think ultimately sharing what Allah's given you is what we should be doing. Wherever we go, whether we're at home, whether we're traveling, but obviously specifically this is about traveling, but being a source of love and mercy for people, I think ultimately that's it. Yeah,
I think you summed it up. Like, I completely agree with you. Like, can we be, in whatever we do, in whatever we say, can we be, and how can we be a source of mercy to like everything around, not just like people, but I don't know, like in plants, animals, because the Prophet ﷺ was sent as a rahmah to the whole of creation. So if we say we are following his example, why can't we do as well? So thank you so much for watching, and so please do not subscribe. Again, this is not a channel about Pakistan or about travels. It has like random content, and like I don't get money for that either. So it's just
don't
like
subscribe. Just forget it. Yeah.
So, and take care of yourselves, and until next time.
Assalamu alaikum.